Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Robert is being chased, thrown on the run, and it is caught. Touchdown, Keenan Allen. What a great...
My goal is not to break you. My goal is to make you harder to break.
Comes back. Number six.
Huge sack by Joey Bosa.
Touchdown! 90-yard touchdown!
Off at the 8-yard line by Derwin James.
Sets his feet, takes a shot downfield, has Knighton.
Caught! Touchdown! Chargers!
Boys, grab your lunch boxes and go attack this day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Have you ever seen a man make a 58-yard field goal look so damn easy? Chargers go down 16-3 at home to the Seattle Seahawks. Easton sticks it in the mud. Minter flashes his aggressive defensive intent. QJ can't get a target, but damn, it's good to have football back, baby. Welcome to the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. Three Aussie lads do our best to get everyone up and about over an underwhelming competitive start to the Harbaugh regime. I am Andy Prophet, and as always, Jack Reed and Alistair Lloyd join me. Let's talk preseason week one and get right into it. A bit of the good, the bad, the ugly to kick off the 2024 campaign. It is just the beginning, so how much of it can we take away as genuine cause for concern? Jack, how about we start on the offensive side of the ball tonight, as I think we can round out with the D on a high note and some sweet special teams before we look ahead to SoFi Showdown with the Rams next Saturday.
Yes, we've been playing around offline with all sorts of little phrases for what we can call this team, with Easton Stick as the signal caller. But honestly, I thought I went out to a Japanese restaurant when I was watching the offense, because what I wanted to grab is a pair of chopsticks and stick them in my eyes. It was that bad. That is how bad. That's a better option than watching what happened at the quarterback position anyway. There are some other interesting things, but stick for brains, stick it out. I don't know what we're going to do. But stuck with stick. I really don't know what... Sticked. I'm really not sure what the future is at our backup quarterback position. Listen, he had probably the worst game of his career, but Sam Howell made him look even worse. Sam Howell's got starting experience. Why don't we have someone like Sam Howell sitting behind Justin Herbert? Maybe we'll get into the offensive line, but Alistair, what were your initial thoughts?
It just sucks how I mean, I felt it. I'm sure our listeners felt it. When you see Chargers football on the TV again, you get that passion, maybe some goosebumps. You're like, it's real football. It's the first time we're seeing Jim Harbaugh and a Greg Roman-led offense. And let's be honest, it might be the worst offensive performance. I don't want to go too far, but maybe the last 4 years, maybe the last 5 years. I can't really recall, including preseason games, too many instances where it's been that bad. Now, Greg Roman will tell you, and he has, because it's all he can say in press conferences, that we're just running very basic plays. We're not scheming. We just want to see if you can execute some basic plays. Well, we got the answer to that. The answer is no, you cannot execute the basic, so don't even move on to the intermediate, perhaps. But yeah, my initial thoughts were I was so excited. I felt bad for Easton Stick. Followers are kind of rubbing it in a bit because I'd gone into bat for him, saying that last season he actually played all right in those 4 starts to end the year. The coaching staff could have moved on. Obviously, they liked what they saw on the coach's film, but he did not repay the faith. He looked every bit as poor as he did coming out of North Dakota State, Andy.
Looked frazzled, didn't he? In his post-game press conference, there was questions about nerves, adjusting to the new scheme, and he just kind of had a bit of a sort of shit-eating grin on his face as he kind of cruised through that conversation. No nerves. We're all excited to be out there. Just didn't execute well. 14.6 as your passer rating says more than enough. But
that's chopsticks sticking in my eyes.
There were those sort of classic instances we saw where, on that, even like off the top of my head, the QB run probably wasn't the right thing, but that was almost the best non-decision that he made, or decision that he shouldn't have made. It was one of the best outcomes of one of his offensive plays. You need look no further than the interception, which almost got an injury-riddled Hayden Hurst split in two with 4 Seattle Seahawks defenders in the line.
I thought that was quite charitable, Andy. Like, good teammate trying to kill Hayden Hurst in his post-concussion return to football.
Yeah. The guy looked like a sack of what was a human just laying on the turf. And we're just thinking, mate, come on. Sell Stone Smart down the river. Like, sacrifice someone else, not a guy that, could be an integral part to this offense. Look, I don't know. It is the preseason, but as much as you say that, and it's one instance of it being really, really bad, and I don't want to just jump down the throat of him and say, nah, he's not worthy of a QB2 spot. That may be the case, and I might be shooting myself in the foot a bit here. It is one preseason game. He doesn't have all of the protection, even though he did have Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt on the line for him. It was a really tough watch.
Seven offensive series to register a first down. Probably the worst offensive performance from any of the 32 NFL teams in preseason week one. Help us put lipstick on a pig, Jack. I mean,
well, it's just unfortunate now that, and we have to take this into consideration, is that Justin Herbert is starting to become injury prone, and that might be jumping to a big conclusion, but Easton Stick is just not someone that we need as a backup quarterback. We need someone with a bit more experience, and the argument for Easton Stick is he's got lots of experience, but he hasn't started anywhere. He's come straight out of North Dakota State, and he said he has been struggling with the speed, and he's been struggling with the scheme. It's all new. It's like, well, buddy, you've been in the league long enough now. You need to have some capacity. So I'd be suggesting that Ortiz and the front office are looking at other options. I don't think it's Duggan, and I don't think it's Perez either, whilst they might flash some things. We need someone with a little bit more starting experience. And I mean, look at what the Chiefs do. Go out and get Carson Wentz, these types of guys to round out their quarterback room. There needs to be definitely some lipstick put on this pig.
Okay, let me ask a question then. Ryan Tannehill is sitting out there probably as the best, most experienced, unsigned free agent quarterback. That is one thing people have discussed. Another is once teams start cutting players who don't make the 53, maybe you find somebody. And our good friend Kyle D. Cantanio has suggested Tyler Huntley, who's, currently with Cleveland, but has been with Baltimore. So there's the Ravens connection. But what about Tannehill, Andy? I mean, we've got at least $13 to $15 million just sitting there to play with. Do we just get him in ASAP and say, hey, how much will it cost? Do you want $5 million to be our backup this year? Start learning the offense. Would you have done that? Because it looks like they're not doing it this week with the game on Sunday.
Yeah, he's definitely probably the front runner in my mind, although there is a really strong argument for the Tyler Huntley with the Baltimore connection. I think you'd probably want to get some change out of $5 million. I think there's money sort of better spent. I'd be probably more eager for the notion if I believed that Herbert's issue was more severe than it probably is. Mm-hmm. But that said, you had to look no further than what it was on Saturday to see that there is a problem, and something needs to be done about it, because a lot's sort of riding on this change in direction for the team. So I'd be more than happy with Ryan Tannehill to steady the ship for a few weeks. But obviously, we'll have to see how this week plays out. And I think later in the show, we can talk about heading into the second game of the preseason and things that, with what we have at the moment, the three guys there, what we can maybe want to see or expect to see. So look, let's not flog a dead horse. We've got to start, building up the energy and talking a little bit more about the rest of the offense. We'll put
click like and subscribe. We've got a brand new positive show here, boys. New season, new Chargers football. Welcome.
Yeah, have a shot of Coke with a full glass of rum. Grab some tissues, cry along, and this is just the familiar tape from the back end of last year with Easton Stick it to the man.
All right, let's take the sniper rifle scope away from Easton. Who are we pointing at next? I will just mention that Greg Roman, I know that this was a basic kind of scheme that you're putting out there. However, There are a lot of Chargers fans who did not like the Greg Roman hiring based on some of his issues with the passing scheme. And I thought it was probably lacking some common sense that you had Quentin Johnston play 17 snaps, a guy who's very low on confidence after last year. You couldn't think of one way of manufacturing a touch for the man, whether it's a bubble screen or getting the ball to him. And the same for old Brendan Rice, who played 43 snaps. He did have a few targets, no catches, but just watching him isolated on the rewatch, he looked like he was getting open a fair bit. He was definitely running his routes hard. So, yes, he didn't have a single catch, but he was certainly trying out there. I thought there was some meat left on the bone from an offensive play caller perspective as well. But let's talk offensive line, Jack. Obviously, we got to see our first outing of Joe Alt. We also got to see our first outing of Alex Leatherwood and everything in between. What did you see from that offensive line in their first hit out, mate?
The difference between Joe Alt and Alex Leatherwood's performance, I think he could fly a 747 and then some between it. Joe Alt was wonderful, I thought, for a rookie. The criticism that I had, or part of the game that he would have to work on, was his strength. There are a couple of times where he got bull rushed pretty hard and he got pushed back quite significantly. Able to recover. We're not talking, the worst loss in the world, but that is something that's going to come with time. It's going to take some time in the gym with Ben Herbert to build those levers, that upper body. He still looks a bit, just physically, he's sort of got that sort of puppy fat on him, I'd say a little bit. Heck of a guy. But geez, his technique looks good. And he and Slater, as anchors on that line in those first couple of series, gosh, it looked good because Slater just looked like it was a day at the office as well. Hardly even broke a sweat.
I'm glad you called that out, Jack. I think it's really important. When you rewatch that 3rd and 10 with Uchenna Nwosu bull rushing Alt, yes, he initially gives up ground, but he manages to re-anchor.
Yes.
Slater does that well too. It looks like, yes, they're pushed back. Maybe it's a hurry. But I'd also say a more experienced quarterback who would trust his tackle. Alt did not actually lose the rep completely.
No.
He still could have readjusted, I think.
Yeah, and that's what I thought that's why I thought the performance was wonderful. And he's only going to get better. And you sort of called it, Alistair, whether it's far too early, that he might be the best tackle that we've ever had, and he might go ahead of Rashawn Slater. Leatherwood, yeah, unfortunately, there's not much to say. What did he have a rating of 7? I think, of pass blocking. It was the worst pass. It was the worst pass blocking
I don't think I've ever seen a worse performance, Andy. It looked like you had gone out there and you didn't understand that an offensive tackle is supposed to kick slide off the snap, because it was just like snap after snap. He's been speed beaten to the edge, and he just was nowhere near it.
Yeah, an absolute road cone. May I say, in my own defense, me out there with my helmet on backwards, he just didn't wasn't aware of the timing, maybe the cadence of the offense, but he was just relentlessly beaten. Hey, you got to take these preseason games to see what you've got, right? And we've waxed lyrical on the detriment of the quarterback position, the backup quarterback position. So this speaks volume. There were moments, I think, if we just go in between there, I didn't think that Brendan Jaimez was particularly bad, but there were moments where there were moments where he was just completely outmuscled by, forgive me,
Byron
first
Murphy.
round pick Byron Murphy. Thank you, monster of a man, Byron Murphy, and he's going to be incredibly fun to watch as his career develops. But yeah, look, there's I didn't think he didn't have great moments, but he still wasn't great, and it just wasn't. All those things can add up to Stick feeling a whole lot more pressure in that, but on the whole, not great. What do you think of Pipkins playing guard, Jack?
I didn't think he was too bad. I still don't like him
or something, right?
there. Yeah, so it was hard to judge. So I need to see more of a body of work, and he did it with Alt there as well. So the other one I was watching very closely was Zion Johnson, and across the whole offensive line, I thought he was probably the most consistent performer. He had a true pass set block of 74 almost, which I think was really, really good. And I was really interested to see his new attitude in the run blocking game. He seemed to block block better in as the zone when it was a zone call other than a gap. But generally, I thought he is where he needs to be. I still would like to see some more performance, but geez, he looks big and he looks strong and he looks a little more decisive with what he's doing. So that was a really big win for me. And you know what? Jordan McFadden was another one that I was watching. And I know, Andy, you said offline that you didn't think he was amazing. But I thought he was serviceable and had taken some steps in the off season. And, next to Hymas, who was just letting pressure after pressure after pressure come up the middle. It's a pretty hard spot to play when you got a guard either side. So, McFadden, Johnson looking okay. Slater, Alt looking good. Leatherwood, Hymas, not so much. But there's some stuff to work with there.
Yeah,
Well,
look,
all right.
where it's due. I mean, it was like you guys said, Pipkins at guard was a small sample space. Pipkins playing at right guard, Zion Johnson at left, Slater at left tackle, all only played the first two drives, which were both 3 and out. So very small sample space. But look, there's a lot to work through. Jaime only gave up the two pressures that were the noticeable. We've still got guys like Foster Sorrell kicking about, and I mean, who would you take?
Training him at guard too. So
who would you take? Who would you take as? I guess. Well, look, ideally, Pipkins is the backup swing tackle if he's not playing at guard. Who would you take? Foster Sorrell or Pipkins?
Pipkins. Almost every single day of the week. Yep.
Categorically. There's some other young guys coming through that should take Foster Sorrell's spot ahead of him in any kind of depth argument.
They might have to go back to looking for some guys on the scrap heap because we've heard all training camp, Hymas has impressed people. I'm closer to Jack on this one. I thought that he was a big loser from the game because I thought he looked too weak for the NFL again. I thought he really struggled with power. And now, to me, there are arguments for looking to some of those waivers and people who don't make the 53. Because right now, I'm confident with Jamari Sawyer. I think if he's not a starting offensive lineman, he's a good sixth. Beyond that, I don't know. I don't think there's anyone really would be comfortable stepping into live action. So that's the offensive line. What about the running backs, Jack? I mean, on the numbers, they didn't force any tackle. They didn't force any missed tackles, so 0 missed tackles forced from their 15 attempts. But it was Jared Patterson, Isaiah Spiller, Elijah Dotson, all had some carries. What did you see there?
I was looking at everything that wasn't running. I tried to find some positivity out of that, and dare I say it, I was looking and I was critical, especially of Isaiah Spiller and all throughout last year, how poor the pass blocking were of the running back group. And that's obviously been something whether Patterson, is I've never watched him before other than then. Dotson seemed to do okay. And Spiller was actually serviceable when he was asked to do it. And it's a small sample size of 3 or 4 snaps each, but that's a really key point, especially if Herbert's going to be running, and who knows with a plantar fasciitis, he probably isn't now, but it wasn't a great outing. And I don't think the offensive line helped that. I was hoping that Spiller would show a little bit more. He ran angry, but he was averaging 1 yard a carry. So that is not good. That's not good at all.
No, did have a couple catches out of the backfield on that last drive, 3 catches and, a couple wiggles. So it's not too embarrassing for you, Jack.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate your kindness.
We'll get to a Boygby later. But for now, Andy, let's go to the wide receivers. All right. So anything there that stood out to you at all? I know there were precious kind of few. There was one deep completion to, I think, Jalen Johnson for 30-something yards that Perez hit. Otherwise, we didn't get to see a lot because of the quality of the QB play, did we?
Yeah, there was that. I know at the start you talked about the sort of simplicity of the passing complex concepts that were run, and it just sort of seemed like they kept it pretty straight down the line. And then once Perez got in there, started just to loosen up a little bit and thought, hey, I've been here for 3 or 4 days. If I can't remember everything that, has been run through it, I'm just going to use my big ass and my big thighs and just heave it down. So there was a little bit of excitement there. DJ Chark kind of had a couple of opportunities. That first drop was just a wobbly, hip high, nothing kind of throw. So, yeah, no, instances like that where it doesn't really do the receivers any favors. Brendan Rice, as you said as well, Al, was a victim of that as well. Couple of instances sort of towards the far sideline heading into the end zone. Might have been unlucky not to get one or two pass interference calls, but still, there's a lot to sort of like out of his intensity and the way he goes about it. But other than that, like Simi Fehoko had another decent catch.
They're playing him as a big slot, which I thought was interesting. Just to try something different. Another thing I thought was interesting is Cornelius Johnson, our 7th round pick, only played the 8 snaps. That's fewer than Jalen Johnson, Simi Fehoko, and even Jalen Gill. That tells me early days, boys, this guy's not making the roster. Unless there's some injury you don't know about, I would expect him to be fighting for a roster spot. So to have fewer snaps tells me he's probably a cut candidate.
Yeah.
Well,
Interesting.
Alice,
So I was going to ask you, Al, are you at all concerned with the timing of the Roman offense? If that was a simplified offense and how poor it was across the board from running backs to the offensive line to the wide receivers, are you at all worried that Justin Herbert is going to take a bit of time even when he comes back in to actually execute? Or are you trusting that Justin Herbert's that good that he can essentially lift this offense from the doldrums and make it competitive?
Well, we've seen he can mask over a lot of holes, Justin Herbert, and he's taken snaps with his moon boot on today, at least running through the motions so he can keep up cerebrally. I think, like anything, though, time on task, as they like to say in the NFL, is going to be relevant. If he's coming in week 1, he hasn't thrown to these guys, it's a new system. It's got to take him a little while. It's got to take him 3 or 4 weeks to ramp up to a level where they're firing for sure. Am I concerned about Greg Roman? I'm prepared to give him a mulligan. Everyone deserves it. Their first attempt at doing something. Us on our first ever podcast show. This is his first attempt calling plays for the Chargers. He was out of the league all of last year. I'm prepared to just overlook what I saw, which was a stinking performance. And don't worry, we'll twist the knife very quickly. If we're at week 1, week 2, week 3, and we're seeing a team that can't run the ball, people don't look like they're on the same page. Again, the spacing of the receiver concepts wasn't great. There were receivers in the same area, not a lot of rubs or motions. I'm sure Greg Roman would say, boys, relax. I know what I'm doing. This is just preseason stuff. We're trying to separate the wheat from the chaff. Chill out, Jack, is what he'd say.
I don't think he'd be that animated. He'd just be like, just chill out, mate. Come to my RV and have a beer. Yeah.
Sounds like a nice way to round out the offensive performance, and let's pray that we see some kind of shift in the upwards direction this week against the Rams.
Stick shift.
No, that's fair. I was thinking some kind of gear stick related thing, but the clutch is busted and he can't get out of first at the minute. Over to the defense, and it looked like in moments that they were really building something. There was a couple of really nice series of plays, and when the opposition have the ball for 39 and a half minutes to only allow 16 points, not too bad an effort. What really stood out to you, Al?
First, like the guys who are starters who played, I thought all showed plenty. Christian Fulton, you're getting close to getting me excited. I've got a little half flag going on watching Christian Fulton. There was that one play where I think they're in cover 2 zone and he knows that he's patrolling the flats, and he just read it beautifully on that first defensive series, made the tackle, only in for a series, and then he's out for the game. He has not put a foot wrong since he arrived at Chargers Park. Tooley, dominant. he just kept flashing pressure, almost had a sack and missed it. He looked too good. Yeah. Also, preseason form from the referees. What are you guys doing?
He's like taking his head off.
Miss face marks call, miss holding for a friggin' touchdown for Halani. But anyway, get that out of the system during the preseason. He was good. Morgan Fox had a great play against the run in the first drive. So starters looked good, Andy. And schematically, he just thought, this is preseason. I'm going to show you guys a few things. We're going to send a lot of different blitzes off the edge, slot defenders, safeties are going to come down. And scheme-wise, I thought it was a very promising start. You commented, Jack. I can't recall seeing so many guys kind of get their hands on the ball, near interceptions with Dean Leonard almost jumping a pass. It seemed like a lot of guys were getting their hands into the action. Pretty good start, mate.
Yeah, I mean, dare I say it, just bring it back to earth a little bit. The one thing in this Minter scheme, what seems to be commonplace from the sample size we've got, is that the soft coverage of the DBs, they seem to be hanging back a little bit in that zone and making a read on the quarterback size. So if I was to make some predictions of what we might see in the future, is that we're going to be seeing a lot of hands-on balls. Wow, that didn't come out right, but there we go. We're gonna be seeing attacking cornerbacks. We're not going to be seeing, hopefully, too many burners over the top. But what a far more adroit quarterback will do, we'll see those holes and we'll just move the ball down the field with those short, sort of 3 to 5 to 7 yard passes, which is fine. That's all right. Alistair, I did actually want to ask you just sort of a philosophical question. We did talk about offline again.
Voltaire? Or, yeah.
But just this modern defensive schemes, which are they now, because, we talked about the Fangio scheme and how that's maybe slightly becoming a little bit outdated. Are these Minter-esque schemes a response to Mahomes and Reed and McDaniel and what McDaniel does with Hill, and how Shanahan uses CMC and Debo, these kind of guys, these that can do everything? Is it more that we're looking for on defense, rather than bend but don't break, we're actually looking to turn the game on its head, try to force those turnovers in coverage, trying to actually manufacture turnovers with the scheme, rather than just perhaps hoping that a quarterback might throw a poor ball and your corner can just get their head around and get an interception? What do you think? It's like an attacking style defense almost?
Yep, I think you've nailed it. I think what's beautiful about this game and the Ravens' former scheme, to me, it's the best of both worlds. They're not like an attacking defense that's playing man on the outside. They're not Wink Martindale where they're going to blitz and play man, and then you're going to see 60-yard touchdowns. They try to have a bit of probably majority zone coverage on the back, so they are protecting those deep strikes. But then, as you say, they will blitz, they'll use simulated pressures, they'll keep the rules easy for the guys up front, and they'll let them just attack and be attack dogs, especially the linebackers. They might do some spot drops into coverage, but I think what you're seeing is we're going to protect the house, but we're going to be aggressive with our front seven so we can force some fumbles, maybe pick a ball or two off, and then they hope against a Mahomes, it takes 1 or 2 turnovers in a game. We've got Justin Herbert. We're going to keep you to 25 points, 22 points, and we're going to score to win. So I think that they're really striking that balance between too defensive Fangio, Gus Bradley, too aggressive maybe Brian Flores, Wink Martindale. Let's hit that sweet spot and have our guys who understand the rules and execute at a high level.
One thing that really stood out for me watching the defense and be it the starters, the second team, the third sort of stringers, was just a really well-rounded kind of communication across the field and like an alignment with playing a team defense. Like everyone understood their role, understood almost what the others were responsible for, and creating like a far greater team defense, as I'm saying, like much more than we sort of saw, especially towards when they kind of checked out of the Staley defense. So even some of these younger guys, UDFAs, guys off the street that are come in, were all kind of playing together, and it was a cohesive effort. I thought that the run defense really stood out as well, as from a team perspective. It was quite impressive. And the linebacker play was great. Nick Neiman missed a couple of tackles early, but then, he stepped up, got a sack, really got himself involved in the game. I enjoyed seeing Deion Henley in the first team wearing the green dot and running around. That's promising for me for what I want to see out of him this year, and taking a step up and having a more prominent role. But yeah, Nick Neiman really felt like a kind of general towards the sort of back end of the game. And it's really good to see. Shout out as well to AJ Finley, who just seems to be going from strength to strength. Made an awesome play, kind of coming in off the slot and then adjusting to get up and bat the pass down. I thought Dan Fouts might have just cooled it a little bit, going, there could have been 3 pick sixes. Like, if you're intercepting those plays, even Dean Leonard, and, look, poor guy, he gives it his all, and you can tell that just lost his footing. Like, man, just let's root for a potential interception rather than they could have had 3 pick sixes on this drive. And you're going, well, they would only have one.
If they could catch, they'd be playing offense. It's Andy in the gully. Just on Deion Henley, I did want to say, I do think we need to be mindful. It even showed up in this game. I think he is a guy who's going to struggle, at least for the first few years, with taking on blocks, taking on tight ends. There was at least one play where the running back kind of saw him, was able to kind of use his blocking to get past him. I think Henley will benefit from playing alongside Coulson or Perryman, who are better run defenders. And you can see Henley can fly sideline to sideline. He's got instincts. I just don't expect run defense to be a big feature of his game earlier in his career. And while you're mentioning Neiman, I thought Troy Dye popped on the film quite a lot, Jack.
It sounds to me that they look like they're in a battle for that last linebacker spot, or we go in with 5 linebackers because Neiman's an athletic freak, and if Troy Dye can fly around that, hey, put him on special teams, because we'll get to special teams in a second about how good they were. Possibly the most important player that I was looking at, and that was in the middle, and that was how Otito came back from his knee injury. Yeah, superb. Well, I won't say superb. Very small sample size, 20 or so snaps. Looked really good in run defense. Looked very stout. Very, very strong. He's not a pass rusher interior. That's not what he should do. But I thought he looked good. And that just made me so happy, because after Puna, Morgan Fox, I understand. He's not really your big block eater. He's more of that second, third down pass rusher, but can do it if need be. But to have 2 big boys in Puna and Otito, wonderful names too. Puna and Obonya. That sounds really cool. But yeah, and also Chris Hinton actually played really, I thought, was there flashing. It just seemed to me that line was, it's finally lovely to see that you've got linebackers coming out wide. Then all of a sudden you've got your edges lined up out in the 9, and then you've got 2 tight. And then all of a sudden it was different. Guys are shifting, changing. I also thought Minter didn't really disguise a lot of his pressure much at all. There wasn't too much pre-snap movement. The linebacker on the line was like, "Hey, I'm coming," and he came. Just, I'm really struggling with these analogies tonight, but we'll get there. So yeah, all around, really, really positive. And but yeah, it was really
a leg
good
over,
to see. No, definitely not.
Okay, we're all roses on the defense. My last rose to hand out is we got a battle on for the 6th or 7th DB spot, because guys are really going for it. Tony Jefferson, JT Woods missed some tackles but also made some plays. Thomas Harper, the undrafted free agent from Notre Dame, who's made plays in camp, made a play in the game. Tahib still made a couple of plays, Andy. So the DBs are firing. Lots of positives.
Even Matt Hankins was
got his hand in a good one.
Yeah, it's a great thing to see, because that the depth, or like the cream at the top of the DB position, or the cornerbacks rather. We've got one of the best safeties in the league. That foam at the top was a bit concerning, but the entire beverage seems like it's a pretty good package. So
it's a good drop.
Yeah, it's a good drop.
Any negatives on the defense, boys, before we move on? Because we've been very positive. Was there any players or any themes that we thought work to do?
I was a bit worried with some of the tackling strength just in general. They weren't starters. I understand that. But yeah, some of the tackles just looked a little bit soft. A couple of arm tackles that I go, well, you should have gotten across a little more.
15 missed tackles according to PFF.
Yeah,
to your
and
point,
I was going to allude to that, but thank you for doing my job for me, Alistair. I appreciate that. You're a good friend.
Does not appreciate that at all. Note to self.
No, but yeah, so the tackling was something. And listen, and as you get later into the game, there are younger guys that come on, less experienced guys that don't get in the right position. So, but I would expect that to not be a part of a Minter and Harbaugh-led defense either, because I think the tenacity that we showed early on gives me hope that that probably won't be an issue, but remains to be seen. Andy, did you see any negatives?
Yeah, look, we spoke about JT Woods making a couple of plays, and I think he sort of assisted with the pressure that I think led to Neiman's sack. Still is athletic, but is not strong enough for mine to be playing a safety role. Scotty Matlock as well had some moments, but look, he's second year. But yeah, the tackling I think is what stuck out to me of just a few frustrations, and maybe I'm trying to be over positive for the defense because the offense was just so underwhelming. But yeah, the tackling is a theme, just continues to be a theme of this team.
Well, per PFF, it was the fourth worst in the league over the weekend. However, our run defense was sixth best in the league. So go figure. I'd suggest a lot of those are on the outside from our linebackers flying around, inexperience, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm as I said, not too concerned, but that's something that listeners just have a look for in the next couple of games and see if they're fixing that up or not.
All right. On to special teams, because that, to me, was just evidence that I think the best coach that we have in the building is Ryan Ficken, and it's a kind of sad state of affairs when special teams is the best aspect of your football team, but we've not missed a step. And like I said at the top of the show, if anyone could make a 58-yard field goal look so easy, that was it. And look, there are our only 3 points for the game, but incredible kick.
He had a draw on that thing that would make Dom LaFontaine proud. It was started wide right, and it's just swung back in. The bastard's got it straight through the middle. He does that on the golf course too. Yeah,
that was great. J.K. Scott's, still booming them. What do we think of the new kickoff rule? That was the first time we've sort of seen the Chargers with the new kickoff rule, and it seems like the protection of the special teams allowed Jalen Gill to make a few really handy returns. So, yeah, look, I don't know too. Maybe I just sort of didn't pick up too much on the sort of coverage or the special teams tackling, but
we might have allowed one that went from memory. We allowed one return that went for a few yards, but I thought, like you, overall, very disciplined. Gill hit on a few returns. He gave himself a chance to hang around for another couple of weeks in the preseason. Darius Davis is not healthier on the field at the moment, so Gill's going to make every post a winner. And I thought J.K. Scott punted very well, even when he was in his end zone. Good hang time and good job on the coverage units too. So, they were the number one special teams in the NFL last year, according to PFF. Just saying that is ridiculous for where the Chargers have been for more than a decade. The very best in the NFL. They show no real signs of slowing down, at least yet.
And this is where the roster building from Ortiz and this front office will really come into play, because you will start to get, I hope, more of a bit of not a revolving door as such, but that talent building. That's the place. And Ryan Ficken is the Ficken is the guy to do it. My favorite coach of the last number of years. Every time.
Kev Diego's just shanked one into the drink on the course with their Ficken. He's like, these guys are still doing it.
I just think it's wonderful. It's very onomatopoeic.
You're an English teacher, aren't you?
I am, correct. Literature.
Got him.
Good stuff. Well done, Dicker.
Righto. Playing the Rams next week. before we jump into that, a couple of roster moves, and I think there's a little bit of a theme. So the team's signed linebacker from Jacksonville, who's a 2020 fourth round pick, Shaq Quarterman. The corresponding move, no tight end fullback Ben Mason anymore. Al, you brought up an interesting point about Greg Roman and possessing a fullback for how many years of the past?
At least 8 of them. I mean, I think Tao for this one on Stormcloud, he did say the fullbacks typically play a large number of snaps over the course of a season for Greg Roman, anywhere up to 400 snaps. Who is that? Is that Jordan McFadden? Are they going to say, you're our 7th offensive lineman, but until you're called upon, you're the full-time fullback?
That'd be amazing. That would be incredible if that's the case.
He's almost too big, but I mean...
Imagine the roadblock of Gus the Bus running behind McFadden, the semi-trailer. Like, that's a sight to see. Ice Road truckers. Don't mind that.
Or direct snap to McFadden and just plow your way through, big boy.
Wildcat with Jordan McFadden.
Wildcat with Jordan McFadden. Oh, that'd make
go for -2 yards. Yeah.
That'd make me do some very interesting things.
Yeah, we'll have to change it to like the wild hippo or something. He's a little bit bigger than the biggest of cats. Another couple of moves.
Very good.
Another couple of moves. Isaiah Wooden, UDFA wide receiver, spent the offseason with the Falcons. He was with the Southern Utah Thunderbirds in 2022 and 2023. I guess the writing was on the wall with the birds into the bolts for how his road into the NFL may be paved. He ranked second last year in all of FCS with 14 touchdown receptions. So handy. The team released Praise Olatoke, and we've waived and then re-signed Savion Jackson, outside linebacker from NC State, and out goes Chris Wilcox, who didn't have a great game. So, yeah, look, some of these moves, bringing in more linebackers, especially the outside, potentially covering a bit of depth. We'll see what the extent of Chris Rump's foot injury was to come out of the game. So heading into...
Quarterman's an interesting one, just quickly, Andy. Like, as Jack said, I think the team is definitely keeping 5 linebackers, in my opinion. Neiman and Dye, both too good, both too useful on special teams. But Shaq Quarterman, he's played, 4 seasons in the NFL. He's been very good on special teams, wherever he's been. And he has played enough snaps on defense to think he is an equivalent player to someone like Neiman or Dye. So it's just a bit weird, but I do like it. It's continuing to bring in guys, churning the bottom of the roster. If you think a guy's out there who's better than a guy you've cut, bring him in.
For sure. Okay. Week 2 against the Rams. What do we want to see? I'm going to kick this off because we lashed Easton Stick. It's quite simple. When I say much of the same, I don't mean it literally in the sense of score 3 points, manage 20 minutes of possession, look like a bottom-rate operation, but use the opportunity to continue the growth, the experiments. I don't think we need to expand the playbook or anything like that. It's the fundamentals, to use a Staleyism. What I actually want to see, let's start Luis Perez off with the sort of to start the game. Let's give the guy a crack. I think maybe bring in Stick later in the second quarter, perhaps, or maybe in the second half if you just want to run 2 QBs. Gain a little bit more confidence in the guy. Lesser opposition, supposing, of course, the Rams rotate their depth accordingly as well. But test Perez out outside of him just sort of dialing it up at the death. I'm neither here nor there about Max Duggan. I think if Perez is not, a potential Stick replacement, then I really don't think Duggan is contesting. He's just kind of making up the numbers.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to be wanting to see, let's juice this running back group up. Let's go out there with a mindset to run the football hard. Give them some snaps behind a semi-decent offensive line as well. Go out there, power run, gap run. Let's just go for it and tell Spiller this is it. Go out and take it. Because the defense, just looking at some of the numbers they had last week, still half decent. But I mean, the Rams defense is not, I don't think will be particularly strong. But let's try and get some yards on the ground. Whether that's with Stick or Duggan or Perez, I really don't care. But that should be, I think, I'd love to see some evolution of the Roman running game. It's a must for me, actually. There needs to be some yardage on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
totally.
I think if we're talking about the basic sort of passing concepts, I thought that the running concepts, like the positions that Spiller was put in on his 5 carries were like dead snaps, essentially. So, feed it. If we're okay with, spending the first 16 minutes of the game without generating a first down, then let's try put some yards onto their legs.
Yep.
I agree with you, Jack.
I think slightly differently to you, Andy, that I would go with Easton Stick in the first half in this game, and that is for this reason. We know that the Rams are one of the teams who actually don't play their starters in the preseason. This should be a game where you see a totally different Easton Stick. I'd use this as a test. If you can't come out against a Rams team of backups and not just be average, be good. We're talking have a PFF grade of 70 plus and actually be really good. That's then telling me, okay, you really need to make a move, cut this guy, get rid of him. Like Perez is still learning the checks and the calls and stuff. I want to see him again, but I would get Stick in there. Hey, you're basically playing for your career here against some backups. Show us something. That's what I'd do anyway. And let's see some Sean McVay on the mic. It's going to be a Rams home game. He was very entertaining with his kind of prognosticating, and he's a good. He's probably got a career in media eventually one day. Let's get him on the mic and hear a bit of Sean McVay calling some Chargers touchdowns against his defense.
Yeah, because Harbaugh just be like, that's good. Whereas McVay's like, that was XY right, 2 Z banana. And then we ran before that 10 minutes ago, XY2 red, 3 banana, X-ray gun. Yeah, freak. He is an absolute freak, Sean McVay. Love him. Absolutely love him. But man,
we all know that your playbook would be limited to XYZ bananas. So.
Yeah, that's right.
I see your point. He is the Nostradamus of, and also just a freakish memory. That was a good video I shared with the two of you before. All right, well, hopefully a little bit more to talk about, a little bit more to be positive about, but at the end of the day, we're all just sort of seeing what we got at the minute while the guns heal. So, look, stick with it. 3 weeks left of preseason before we get into it, and let's try and enjoy it. That'll do it for us this week, guys. Take it easy. It's just the preseason. Lots to get excited about. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on TDU.
See you later, Governor.
Back pedals looking, firing. He's got Floyd turning. Got it. Zigzag. 10, 5, high step. Touchdown. San Diego.
Woo! Good night. Good night to all.